I'm Sarah Aldridge, and I'd like to tell you about my project, Using Blended Learning to Teach Learners to Design Visual Aids for Presentations. This is for a course I teach Com 375. It's here as a face-to-face class at Ball State, and so I've decided to use a blended model where learners will complete this online component, and then they will come to class and complete an activity that is contingent upon what they've learned in the learning module. They will make a visual aid, and then they will give a short presentation about the visual aid. So that's kind of how I've tied the two together. Some learning objectives that I cover in this module. Upon completion of this activity, learners will be able to locate the PowerPoints on a slide, identify the golden ratio, create a visual aid that satisfies the guidelines in the lesson, and speak articulately and thoughtfully about the design of their visual aids. So without further ado, I'd like to show you my project. So as you can see, it's pretty easy for learners to navigate. The arrows make it very obvious where they go. This is just an introduction. There's also a video from me introducing the course. The first few slides are very text heavy because there's a lot of text they need to learn in order to succeed at this. This slide is where you start to see some graphics explaining exactly what I mean by appealing charts in 2D and 3D. This slide is a little bit special because I found two great resources on the internet about the picture superiority effect. So I've linked to this YouTube video and then this article, and those will be part of the in-class discussion as well. So they'll see some direct application from that. This is where we start to get into balance and how you should design your slide with balance and symmetry. And so I have some examples here. Learners can make a choice how they want to design their slide, and that will be important in a moment. This is a little lesson I teach about the grid and the rule of thirds. It's really helpful if you can have the visual and not just read the words. But if you would rather read, here it is. Some examples. And then finally, this is important because this is the conclusion. So learners will need these instructions to be able to complete the in-class activity. So this is a pretty important slide, and this video gives you some information as well. So this is kind of the carrot that's going to motivate students, because if they don't have this information, they cannot do the in-class activity, and that's not good because that's worth points. And also, this is a major learning concept. And finally, here's the rubric for the assignment. I know the text is a bit small, so that's why there's a download link right here. But this is great because students will actually use the visual aid that they're about to design for their persuasive speech. I don't know if you saw that in the last set of directions. But that is going to be helpful because it's just scaffolding and building on concepts. So you learn the skill to make the visual aid now, but you use it in your next project. So that's pretty much my project in a nutshell. That's a very quick overview. But that's what I have going on. So there are a few different ways that I'm using the digital and visual literacy concepts we've learned in class in this lesson and to design this lesson. But I want to talk specifically about Hobbes' dimensions of literacy, digital literacy, how that guided my design on this project. First is access. There are many different types of media in here. There are videos, there are pictures, there are articles, and then there are just summary slides. So the differently abled can learn these in different ways depending on what your learning style is. The next is analyze. By talking about these concepts and using these examples, it forces learners to ask themselves, well, where have I seen things like this? Or when I've seen speeches in the past, what do visual aids look like? I find for my students, sometimes they have a bit of an aha moment when they realize, like, oh yeah, 2D charts, those are more common. The next is obviously create. That level of the, dimension of literacy is all over this project, because they create their visual aid, they create a presentation talking about their visual aid, and reflect. And this one's important because throughout the project, learners have to make choices, like when I showed balance, symmetry, and asymmetry. They have to really decide, well, what way do I want to design my visual aids? Is this more formal and I want to center everything? Or is it a bit more cutting edge but more informal? Should I, justify to the left or right? And so those are just some examples of how choices within the project, when they go to make their visual aid, are influenced, and that forces them to reflect on the dimensions of literacy. Anticipated learning outcomes. I have used the National Communication Association's Learning Outcomes and Communication project from 2015. Learning outcome number 4, create messages appropriate to the audience, purpose, and context. And learning outcome number 6, demonstrate the ability to accomplish communicative goals, perform verbal and nonverbal communication behaviors that illustrate self-efficacy. So that's how I've used the learning outcomes. I hope that you've enjoyed my project. I know I really enjoyed making it, and thank you for your time.